Okay, as part of the pre-reading activity, is the screen visible to you, students?
Oh,
it's still loading.
Okay.
Hello.
Can you see the screen now?
yes, sir.
Yes, sir. It's visible.
Okay. So let's start with the pre-reading activity. What, according to you, is science? Because here the author seems to or mainly focus on what is the value of science. Before we try to analyze it, we should know what science is all about. What, according to you, is science? What is your definition of science? Because I hope at least in your high school, most of you are, or all of you are science students, or you would have studied science till your high school. Okay, what is your definition or perception about science?
Sir, science is something that has universal validity, has a couple of established principles that can be proven time and time again, and it's not something that will change over time. However, in improvements of the understanding of science can be made. The base principles remain the same, and all the theories that have been come up that have been established or have all been done after trial and error and experimentation.
Okay, good. So what do you mean by universal validity?
So,
you mentioned the word universal validity. What do you mean by that?
So when we speak of universal validity, we mean that wherever we go, and of the principles that are applied of science, that wherever we applied them, they remain constant.
Yes. So that is the main difference between science and humanities and any other subjects. Yes, anybody else? Okay. So people are responding the way of reasoning things around us. It's not the way of reasoning things around us. It is reason itself and universally true. Okay. So the best example is, for example, is the formula or the chemical composition of water. Okay, it's H2O across the world, anywhere you test it. Okay, science mainly deals with experiments and validity. So whether you test the formula of water in India or in America or in UK, the formula remains the same. So that is what is meant by universal validity. And irrespective of the number of times you repeat it, the result is the same. That is why science is mainly based on experimentation, reasoning. When it comes to humanities or social sciences or literature, what happens? The same terminology of water will have multiple meanings. If you consider the example of water between Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, then the issue of Kaveri rises. Then it will have a different meaning. Okay, if you consider the question of water within Bangalore, okay, we have water crisis here. Most of the apartments are dependent on bore wells and even water supplies, water tanker suppliers, and we have the concept of polluted water. So the same word water will have different meanings in humanities, literature, but when it comes to science, it is just a chemical composition. Got it? So the basic definition of science is it is of universal validation, experimentation, and irrespective of the number of times you experimented, the result is the same. So now, what do you mean by science, scientific temper? So the main aspect of science and scientific temper is we should reason it out. We should try to reason whatever we do, whatever we believe. But unfortunately, not everything can be reasoned out. So therefore, they say religion starts where science ends. Not all can't be explained through science. Some of the aspects you can't explain through science at all. So therefore, religion starts, or our faith system, or our belief starts where science ends. And you should also keep one thing into consideration. You can't reason everything in science. Science does not have the solution for everything. Okay, that is why they say religion or faith system starts where science ends. Got it? Do all of you agree with this? Do all of you agree that science does not have answers for all the problems that human or the earth is facing today?
I think they do exist, but mankind has just not been able to figure it out.
Yeah,
they
that's
exist
what.
in the universe, but we haven't been able to discover it. Maybe sometime in the future, there will be answers for everything.
Yes, even science also. For example, this black hole theory, the formation of planets. gravitation. So for our understanding, whatever is relevant today, we can assume that it is correct. But tomorrow, if some other scientist comes up with a new theory, then that the theory may change. That scientific value may change. Okay. So and see, if mankind has or humankind has not identified it is equivalent to saying we are not aware of it. But now people are exploring Mars. Many people even criticize it. You are trying to identify water in Mars and you are wasting water on Earth. Isn't it? You are misusing water on Earth. So the basic differentiation that you can have between science and non-sciences or humanities or religion is science ends, religion begins where science ends. Not all aspects can be explained through science. Okay, be it the concept of God, be it the concept of spirits. Okay, everything we can't have many a times medical illness, for example. If a person is diagnosed with some medical illness, science can't, even medicinal science can't determine the exact reason for it. The doctors you would have approached, you would have seen doctors saying, we don't have an explanation for it, because most of the medical sciences treatments mainly deals with the effects rather than the cause, because they say we don't know the cause. The causes can be many, multiple, and even medical science is not advanced to that greater extent. They say it happens, and most of the medical illness is due to unknown reasons. Okay, we should also understand the limitations of science. We should not be always keep one thing in mind. No concept in this world is 100% correct. Each and every concept has its own pros and cons. It will have its own loopholes. Got it? So with this basic discussion about science, now let's have a discussion about Richard Feynman. Okay, so that we will have some basic understanding about this particular author for better understanding of his work. So I hope you have a clarity regarding scientific concepts. Yes or no, students?
Yes.
So scientific temper means looking at things objectively through reasoning. But on the other hand, you should also keep keep this in mind. Not everything in this world can be reasoned out. Okay, let's say you like something. So for everything, you don't find a reason. Let's say you love somebody. So you can't reason it out why you love that particular person. You may not be in a position to find out the reason. That is where literature comes into picture, philosophy comes into picture. Okay, let's say you like some person, and even if you sit and figure out why is that you like that person, why you're in love with that person, you may not be able to reason it out in clear-cut manner. And the same principle you can't apply to other person also. Okay, so let's have a brief understanding of Richard Feynman. Richard Phillips Feynman was an American theoretical physicist known for his work in the path integral formulation and quantum mechanics, the theory of quantum electrodynamics, the physics of the superfluidity of supercooled liquid helium, as well as his work in particle physics, for which he proposed the Parton model. For contributions to the development of quantum electrodynamics, Feynman received the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1965, jointly with Julian Schwiger and Shizano Tomago. Okay, so in this particular text, you have a lot of exposure to Nobel laureates. Okay, you had one, this Charlie Chaplin speech. Okay, then you had William Faulkner speech, and this is one Nobel laureate's works that you are being exposed to. Feynman developed a widely used pictorial representation scheme for the mathematical expressions describing the behavior of subatomic particles, which later became known as Feynman diagrams. During his lifetime, Feynman became one of the best known scientists in the world. In a 1919 poll of 130 leading physicists worldwide by British journal Physics World, he was ranked the 7th greatest physicist of all time. He assisted in the development of the atomic bomb during the World War II and became known to a wide public in 1980s as a member of Rogers Commission, the panel that investigated the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. Along with his work in theoretical physics, Feynman has been credited with pioneering the field of quantum computing and introducing the concept of nanotechnology. He held the Richard C. Tolman Professorship in Theoretical Physics at the California Institute of Technology. Feynman was a keen popularizer of physics through both books and lectures, including a 1959 talk on top-down nanotechnology called There's Plenty of Room at the Bottom, and the 3-volume publication of his undergraduate lectures, the Feynman Lectures on Physics. Feynman also became known through his autobiographical books, Surely You Are Joking, Mr. Feynman, and What Do You Care? What Other People Think, and books written about him such as Tua or Bust by Ralph Layton, and the biography Genius, The Life and Science of Richard Feynman by James Cleek. So this is the brief information about Feynman. Let's focus on his important aspects, his important contribution. What about this Manhattan Project? In 1941, with World War II raging in Europe, but the United States not yet at war, Feynman spent the summer working on ballistics problem at the Frankfurt Arsenal in Pennsylvania. After the attack on Pearl Harbor brought the United States into the war, Feynman was recruited by Robert R. Wilson, was working on means to produce enriched uranium for use in an atomic bomb as part of what would become the Manhattan Project. At the time, Feynman had not earned a graduate degree. Wilson's team at Princeton was working on a device called an isotron intended to electromagnetically separate uranium-235 from uranium-238. This was done in a quite different manner from that used by the calutron that was under development by the team under Wilson's former mentor, Ernest O. Lawrence, and the radiation laboratory of the University of California. On paper, the isotron was many times more efficient than the calutron, but Feynman and Paul Olam struggled to determine whether or not it was practical. Ultimately, Lawrence's recommendations, the isotron project was abandoned. So this is about Cornell. This is all related to physics, which most of us, if we don't have any basic knowledge about nuclear physics, may not be able to understand. So there is one information about his autobiography. That is Surely You Are Joking by Mr. Feynman. In the 1960s, Feynman began thinking of writing an autobiography, and he began granting interviews to historians. In 1918s, working with Ralph Layton, Robert Layton's son, he recorded chapters on audio tape that Ralph transcribed. Transcribed means whatever you speak, that is in writing format. Now you need not worry about it because of the Google tool. If you go to Google Drive, whatever you speak, it gets in. You can get it in typed format. Gell-Mann was upset by Feynman's account in the book of the weak interaction work and threatened to use, resulting in a correction being inserted in later editions. This incident was just the latest provocation in decades of bad feeling between the two scientists. Gell-Mann often expressed frustration at the attention Feynman received. He remarked Feynman was a great scientist, but he spent a great deal of his effort generating anecdotes about himself. Feynman has been criticized for a chapter in the book titled You Just Ask Them, where he describes how he learned to seduce women at a bar he went to in the summer of 1946. A mentor taught him to ask a woman if she would sleep with him before buying her anything. He describes seeing women at the bar as witches in his thoughts and tells a story of how he told a woman named Anne that she was worse than a whore, after Anne persuaded him to buy her sandwiches by telling him he could eat them at her place. But then after he bought them, saying they actually could not eat together because another man was coming over. Later on that same evening, Anne returned to the bar to take Feynman to her place. Feynman states at the end of the chapter that this behavior wasn't typical of him. So it worked even with an ordinary girl. But no matter how effective the lesson was, I never really used it after that. I did not enjoy doing it that way. But it was interesting to know that things worked much differently from how I was brought up. So he talks about his experiences with women there, Challenger, disaster, recognition, and awards. The first public recognition of Feynman's work came in 1954. When Levi Strauss, the chairman of Atomic Energy Commission, notified him that he had won the Albert Einstein Award, which was worth $15,000 and came with a gold medal. Because of Strauss' actions in stripping Oppenheimer of his security clearance, Feynman was reluctant to accept the award. But Isidor Asek Rabbi cautioned him, "You should never turn a man's generosity as a sword against him. Any virtue that a man has, even if he has many vices, should not be used as a tool against him." So what is your opinion about this? Should you focus on the personal aspects of an individual when it comes to the individual's contribution, or should you consider the personal aspect as separate? I need your inputs on this, students.
So I believe since everyone should be seen as face value of their accomplishments, especially when it's they're being accredited for their academic works. I think their personal life is completely irrelevant to whether or not they deserve the award.
Yes. So this is what even the advanced developed countries are following. You know about Trump, okay? But if the same thing had happened in India, that type of person wouldn't have won at all. Yes or no? In India, we value personal life to a very great extent. We don't say personal is different from political, isn't it? We try to we don't try to segregate it. We try to combine that personal is political. We try to politicize the personal aspects. Whereas in developed countries, they don't take into consideration. They say, we are seeing you as a professional and we don't care about your personal life. And it all depends on our cultural upbringing and our cultural values that we follow. And it's not, I'm not saying that it is wrong. You can't have a person, let's say, for example, a representative, a political representative, who has a very bad personal life. And many times we question, how can he represent us politically? Many even criticized our present prime minister. Many even said he does not have any experiences related to familial life, personal life. How is he? How does he know the pain that we family members face as common people? That was the criticism against him when there were frequent price hikes. Okay, be it in terms of petrol, diesel, or any inflation. Okay, that's what the oppositions criticized. He does not have any exposure to the personal problems of a familial individual. Therefore, he is very much insensitive. And there are both pros and cons for it. Okay, whether you should take a personal life of an individual into consideration or not. It's up to individual. It's very much individualistic. Then any virtue that a man has, even if he has many vices, should not be used as a tool against him. So that is what the person feels here. It was followed by Ernst Orlando Lawrence Award in 1962. The same thing applied with the Sylvia Plath also, isn't it? The previous chapter that we discussed, many blamed the husband of Sylvia Plath for leading her to suicide. He was elected as a foreign member of Royal Society in 1965, received the Orsted Medal in 1972, and the National Medal of Science in 1979. He was elected a member of National Academy of Sciences, but ultimately resigned and is no longer listed by them. So he missed out on one thing that is related to this. Is a personal, political personal aspect should be taken into political considerations. Then death. In 1978, Feynman sought medical treatment for abdominal pains and was diagnosed with liposarcoma, a rare form of cancer. Surgeons removed a tumor the size of a football that had crushed one kidney and his spleen. Further operations were performed in October 1986 and October 1987. He was again hospitalized at the UCLA Medical Center on February 3rd, 1988. A ruptured duodenal ulcer caused kidney failure, and he declined to undergo the dialysis that might have prolonged his life for a few months. Watched over by his wife Gwyneth, sister Joan, and cousin Francis Levin, he died on February 15, 1988 at the age of 69. When Feynman was nearing death, he asked his friend and colleague Danny Hillis why Hillis appeared so sad. Hillis replied that he thought Feynman was going to die soon. Feynman said that this sometimes bothered him too, adding, when you get to be as old as he was and have told so many stories to so many people, even when he was dead, he would not be completely gone. Near the end of his life, Feynman attempted to visit the Tuvan autonomous Soviet Socialist Russia, a dream thwarted by Cold War bureaucratic issues. The letter from the Soviet government authorizing the trip was not received until the day after he died. His daughter Michelle later made the journey. His burial was at Mountain View Cemetery and Mausoleum, Altadena, California. His last words were, "I would hate to die twice. It's so boring." Means what? Since he suffered a lot because of that cancer, he felt that it's of no use to get treated for this, because he's just, by doing that, he's just postponing his death. Therefore, he said, "I would dare to die twice. It's better to die at once." During those time, the medical science was not that much advanced. I think during those time, dialysis itself was a great thing. Therefore, he refused to undergo dialysis, and he preferred to die without any treatment. Then what about his popular legacy? Aspects of Feynman's life has been portrayed in various media. Feynman was portrayed by Matthew Broderick in the 1996 biopic Infinity. Actor Alan Alda commissioned playwright Peter Parnell to write a two-character play about a fictional day in the life of Feynman set 2 years before Feynman's death. The play QED premiered at the Mark Taper Forum in Los Angeles in 2001 and was later presented at the Vivian Beaumont Theatre on Broadway, with both presentations starring Alda as Richard Feynman.
Aspects of Feynman's life has been portrayed in various media.
Real-time opera premiered its Opera Feynman at the Norfolk Chamber Music Festival in June 2005.
Peter Panel.
In 2011, Feynman was the subject of biographical graphic novel entitled
entitled
Simply Feynman, written by Jim Ottavini and illustrated by Leland Myrick. Just a minute. Okay. In 2011, Feynman was the subject of a biographical graphical novel entitled Simply Feynman, written by Jim Ottaviani and illustrated by Leland Myrick. In 2013, Feynman's role on the Rogers Commission was dramatized by BBC in The Challenger, with William Hurt playing Feynman. Feynman is commemorated in various ways. On May 4, 2005, the United States Postal Service issued the American Scientist commemorative set of 437-cent self-adhesive stamps in several configurations. Since his picture was brought in the form of stamps. The scientists depicted were Richard Feynman, John Young Newman, Barbara McClintock, and Josiah Willard Gibbs. Feynman's stamp, Sepia Tone, features a photograph of a 30-something Feynman and 8 small Feynman diagrams. The stamps were designed by Victor Stabin under the artistic direction of Carl T. Herman. The main building for the computing division at Fermilab is named the Feynman Computing Center in his honor. A photograph of Richard Feynman giving a lecture was part of the 1997 poster series commissioned by Apple Inc. for the Think Different advertising campaign. Sheldon Cooper, a fictional theoretical physicist from the television series The Big Bang Theory, is a Feynman fan who has emulated him on various occasions, once by playing the bongo drums. On January 27, 2016, Bill Gates wrote an article, "The Best Teacher I Never Had," describing Feynman's talents as a teacher, which inspired Gates to create Project 2R to place the videos of Feynman's messenger lectures, The Character of Physical Law, on a website for public viewing. In 2017, Gates made a video on why he thought Feynman was special. The video was made for the 50th anniversary of Feynman's 1965 Nobel Prize in response to Caltech's request for thoughts on Feynman. At CERN, home of the Large Hadron Collider, a street on the marine side is named Road Feynman after the physicist. I think this much of information about Feynman is sufficient.